Hello, welcome to another episode of the Realtor Rant. I am your host, Alana O'Hanlon, with my host.
Holly Barrett.
Well, how are you today, Holly? What's going on in your world?
Lonnie, I'm in a little bit of a funk.
Yeah, we haven't had much time to talk though.
Well, not to be a total downer on this episode, but the school shooting that just took place yesterday was just two counties over. I'm really familiar with Winder and so I don't know, it's just kind of got me. It's like I don't know. What do you do? It's just I got a good little cry in, so I think I'll be okay. I just saw this kid give an interview that really tugged at my heartstrings. So
What did he say in the interview?
oh, what a sweet, that kid really impressed me. 14-year-old boy, and he was retelling what happened play by play. His teacher shielded him. Gun like the kid was shooting off rounds in his classroom. The gun smoke was filling up the classroom. He said, "It's a miracle I didn't get shot." And he said that I've been thanking God, and he said I really believe that God had his arms around me.
Oh my
Oh.
gosh. Ah, I know. And it's so close to you, but these school shootings, they never get easier, especially
No.
since we're both moms and we both have our babies in school. So it's a constant struggle of like, God, are you doing the right thing sending your kid to school now? Because you never know.
Are we raising our children? I love this country, but
Yeah,
but I'll be honest, when this stuff happens, I wonder, should we even live here?
I know. I mean, we talk about it all the time and we go through the same thing. Do they know anything about the shooter yet? Besides,
Um,
I know he's 14, but beyond that,
so one of his classmates said that he was um quiet, shy, would give one-word answers, um, missed a lot of school, skipped school a lot is actually the word she used. Uh, I know his mother was either is or was in jail. I think she's got a history of drug abuse and theft and uh my this area my money's on meth. I saw a picture of her and looked like meth to me.
yeah.
So it's dad's been she left the dad, I guess. I don't know exactly when. Anyway, he lives with his dad and his two siblings. And the mom claims that that the dad was abusive. Who knows
Yeah.
what the truth is there? But the crazy thing is, and I don't know if you saw this, but last year, this kid and the father were interviewed by GBI, the Georgia Bureau of Investigations, which is like our,
I did see that.
yeah. And
Which is just,
you know what,
to me,
Alana?
it makes it that much more worse and that much more frustrating that this kid was being watched. There was obviously something going on where this kid was questioned. And for a year later, this to happen, it's just,
Well, he made terroristic threats on Facebook. And then I don't know, he said he didn't do it. Which you would think they could clearly see that he did it
right?
if they found him. But anyway, he said I didn't do it, and the dad, they asked, do you have firearms in this home? Dad said yes for hunting, but the kid doesn't have unsupervised access to them. You know, Alana, I know a lot of two-way people don't like red flag laws, and I understand the arguments there, slippery slope. What do you do with veterans who have PTSD? Okay, I get there are a lot of arguments, but we already remove firearms in many states, Georgia being one of them. I think Florida too. Um, in cases of domestic violence, if there's a domestic violence situation and there's a gun in the home, doesn't matter who it belongs to. My understanding is it's removed, and it can take up to a year to get that gun back. So they do confiscate guns in many cases with these domestic. So why not do that when there's a when there's a terroristic threat? Why not do that when there's a child in the home who is exhibiting violent behavior, exhibiting self-harm, potential to self-harm? Why why can't we just take, I mean, can't we do the same thing we do with domestic violence so that we're not, you know, giving that quick factor, the easy factor? I don't know. It's just something I've been thinking about.
It definitely seems like there should be more that could be done to prevent, you know, um, things like these, especially from a kid that had already been making threats, clearly troubled, you know, not a, you know, traditional or, type of household that he's growing up in. Um, you know, it's never easy and it's so
Um,
sad.
The
And
Uvalde shooter also made terroristic threats to his school in high school, I believe. He turns 18, he goes, he buys a gun. The terroristic threats, which it was
see, why would he even, if he made terroristic threats, why would he even be able to purchase a gun?
because that was sealed because he was a juvenile, so it didn't show up on the background check, which is another thing I think we need to change. There are certain
Yeah,
things that if kids do it, I'm sorry, don't seal it. A terroristic threat is one of them.
yeah, I agree. I agree. There's so
So,
much, and you have people on both sides of the aisle with it, get rid of guns altogether. And then you've got, the other people that are pro gun, which I am pro gun, but there's got to be situations where you have rules for extenuating circumstances.
I agree. And most of us agree upon hardening schools. I think that is a pretty bipartisan stance. I know the logistics are tricky and the investment, but at this point, I mean, I think most of us would vote on something like that and be okay with, hey, like at this point, sorry, we've lost our ability to have open schools. We have to have a metal detector at each entrance. We have to have only one or two entrances, and I mean, they already have metal detectors in many inner city schools that are,
Right.
in areas where there's higher violence. Like, so they've been living. I mean, some schools in inner cities have an actual police like unit, like an office in the school. And so yeah, because I often hear them say like, well, these mass shootings aren't happening in those schools. Well, yeah. I mean, because they have a literal police office and like and they have a metal detector already. So maybe we just
So they're
have to,
confiscating weapons before they even get a chance to
yeah,
like bring them into the school.
yeah.
Now,
So
this particular school, high school, did have a good protocol and system
yeah.
in place. Can you talk more about that?
I don't know a lot of details about Alani, but I just know that they had a really quick response time, and the school. My understanding is that the school resource officer, ap basically approached him. Put your gun down almost minutes into it.
Yeah.
So,
And the damage
and
that can be done in just a matter of minutes.
I know it's awful. It's awful. One other thing, Alana, I wanted to say, I had my pickleball last night.
Yeah.
Um, clinic. And one of the gals in there is a special ed teacher. And she told me something interesting. She told me a story of this autistic kid. And look, we all know autistic children. This is not to degrade them or, I, I'm not trying to say anything bad because plenty of people are autistic.
Right.
But this particular child was indeed autistic, and I think he was pretty severely so, and having a lot of issues. There's a lot of force integration too in the schools now that maybe isn't always appropriate. With children who just they're they they just can't. They can't operate. They struggle. They really struggle in these, especially these big, massive public school um, buildings. So this particular kid was really struggling, and he brought a gun. No, not a gun. He brought a knife to school, and he had a kill list. And they apprehended the kill list. He intended to harm. He had literally written down who he was going to stab to death.
Wow.
And
How old is this child?
this was a high school student. She didn't mention the
Okay.
age.
Okay.
Um, and do you know what they did to him?
What?
They suspended him, and he went right back to school because he has an IEP. And I
And
just keep
what is that?
IEP is for children. What is it? I educational plan. I forget what the I stands for. It's basically like a special education.
Independent
No,
education plan?
I don't think so. Uh, um, lots of kids are on IEPs. Could be that they have. I mean, could be that they have dyslexia, I guess, or some behavioral issue, or they've got oppositional defiance disorder, which is a big one that they keep diagnosing, ODD, and you get on this IEP program that basically um you get special resources, could be speech, could be
Individualized
individual.
education program.
Okay. Yeah. So IEPs mean a lot of different things. It's based
Mhm.
upon the child, so it's kind
Yeah.
of hard to, yeah. But what I keep hearing, a common theme come up, is that kids with IEPs are just not being punished to the same extent as a kid without an IEP would be. They're not being expelled at the same rate, or they're just the other kid involved gets punished and the IEP kid doesn't when they both were
Hmm.
part of the altercation. I just keep hearing these anecdotal stories. They are anecdotal, so
Yeah. Take it
um
with a grain of salt.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't
It's
know
really
what's going on.
frustrating. It seems like a lot of the schools have just become like a glorified daycare.
Well, I think schools are too big.
Yeah, I
And
agree with that.
I really do. In Holly's perfect world,
Tell us
look.
more about Holly's perfect world.
Listen, I'm not against the concept of public school. I don't love I don't love the model in its current form. Um, but if I could start over and design it, one of the things I would have would be more schools in a region, smaller, less student population, and more spread out, um, as opposed to, two massive centers in a
Yeah,
big county and everyone coming in. Like that school has 1,800 kids, 18 or
right.
1,900 kids. I mean, that's a massive school.
Yeah.
And the reason I say I do think size matters with this because, well, I also think we need more counselors and we need to put less paperwork on their plates. They need to be able to actually be out there in the field on that campus with eyes on these kids.
Right.
And when they see someone is struggling, they have to have the time and the freedom to go and do that job and to pull a kid in and find out what's going on because they are counselors. They are mental health specialists.
Yeah.
And they're not able to do I don't think it's their fault. I do think they're overburdened by other processes and procedures or whatever. And we just don't have enough of them either for these massive schools. So I think we need, personally, the smaller schools. Also, sense of community is so lacking. Families don't go to church as much as they used to back in the
Hmm.
50s, 60s. um we have a church that's very community. I feel so much a part of that community. There's mothers there, there's women that are pouring love into my kids, that are encouraging them, that are helping me raise them.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of missing, but like schools could be that,
If they
but they're
were
just
on a smaller
I
scale where there
yeah.
was more involvement.
Yeah, I think they're kind of soul sucking. These
Yeah.
big brick, it's intimidating. Look, some kids thrive. Some kids really thrive there. But for the kids who feel a little bit of an outsider, who are already struggling with suicidal ideation, who may be being bullied, who may be being beaten at home, who knows what,
Right.
whatever the case may be, some mental health issue, whatever. Um, that's not a great environment for them. I don't think anyone could convince me otherwise. You could get so lost in the sauce there. You could just become invisible. You could just crouch, you could
Yeah.
just make yourself invisible. Whereas where our kids go to school, our kids are in private schools,
Right.
tiny schools. My kids' school is so tiny.
Yeah.
There's no way you're hiding anything from anybody if you're in pain, oh, they're gonna see it. The principal's gonna see it. There's constant, there's constant contact. There's constant intimate moments. There's prayer.
Right.
There's, there's, it's so much more intimate.
Hmm.
I can see every one of those kids. And I'm
Right.
looking at them. I told you, I'm looking at every one of these kids. I'm
Holly's
laser
profiling
beam.
everybody right now. No age is off limits for Holly right now.
I'm side-eyeing you. Got my eye on you, kid. Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
And in a
Yeah.
smaller school, there's so much more parent involvement that is expected. The parents know each other, the children know each other's parents. You have close relationships with the teachers at the school. So, you know, everybody has more eyes on things. I mean, we have to do well, the Catholic, my kids are in Catholic school, and so we have to do a diocese training that we have to go through, and then we have to do background check, fingerprints every few years, and then we have access to the school. But anybody that doesn't
Oh.
do that is not allowed to volunteer inside the school during school hours. You can't chaperone field trips. You can't participate in any activities that involved going on, like if you want to do room mom or
Wow.
parties, or if a dad wants to help out with maintenance or anything like that, you can't do those things unless you go through those proper steps. So we have a really good vetting process to see who is allowed in the school as well. And, it's just that sense of community. I mean, we have, an armed guard at our school as well that's always there. We have gates that are always locked. There's cameras everywhere. And, it's small. I would actually like to have two armed guards because the entrances to still, even though we're a small school, to run from one side of the school to the other side of the school, bearing on where, intruder might come in or, uh, you know, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I lost my
Um,
train of thought there.
how many kids are at the school?
I think around 300,
Yeah,
350. But you got to think we're EC2 all the way up to eighth grade.
right. This school my kids go to is pre-K to 12th grade. But I mean, there's probably only, I mean, there can't be more than 100 kids in the
Hmm.
whole school. It's tiny. Maybe
Teeny
around
tiny.
100.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so small.
We are growing. I mean, my son's class, Aiden, his class was always, we had like 20 to 25 kids. Now they're up to 30, 31, and that's usually where they're at. Um, I would like to see that be capped. I think once you get over
Yeah.
that, the kids get lost, even in a
Hmm.
small school. So, there's just constant supervision, but I do think there can be a lack of if you then have too many kids in a class as well.
Yeah, I don't love that ratio, 30 kids in a class. I mean, maybe they have two teachers in that class.
Some do, like a
Some
teacher
do.
and then an aide. What they do for the fifth through eighth grade is they almost have the classes like high school where they rotate classes and they switch classes. So they have like advanced classes, regular classes, and then they
Yeah.
rotate the kids around, which makes
Yeah.
those classes smaller at times. And then they
Yeah.
separate homeroom boys and girls. So girls are in one homeroom, boys are in another homeroom.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah. They start to
Yeah.
talk about, you know,
I think our ratio for now the little kids is a little smaller class. Maybe it's like 10 in the kindergarten. But the older kids seems I think the ratio is like 16 to 1. I want to say that's the ratio.
that's a great ratio.
Yeah, it's so small. But at our school there's
Will
not
you
a
keep them there throughout, you think?
um gosh, it's such a pain in the butt to move them. And that the whole school thing was so stressful for me. I'm really happy with that place. It's half the cost of some of the other private schools around here. Now, and my kids seem to be enjoying it. Now, if Georgia passed the bill for the school choice bill and gave me, 6 grand or education savings account money that I could use to pick any school of my choice, then I might do a little more shopping. Because there is one school that I kind of have my eyes on. I have to wait a few years because both boys couldn't go until, the younger is a certain age. But there's
Are
one
they
school,
3 grades apart?
too.
2.
Yeah. So Fox will be in pre-K this year and next year because he's in the 3/4 class. So he's gonna have to stay in the same class for 2 years. And then Brooks is in kindergarten. So when Fox is in kindergarten, Brooks will be going into second grade. Yeah. So
Okay.
two. So anyway, there is one kind of bougier school. I mean, for this area, it's pretty nice, and it's like I keep hearing great things about it. It seems pretty awesome, but it's way more expensive. I mean, it's at least it's like double the price. But if I could get help to go there, then I might, tour it and consider it. But for now, I'm really happy with the school they're at, and it's much, affordable for us. So.
Do they have security protocol in place?
So yeah, it's so there's um one main entrance. Of course, there's some other doors, but they all lock automatically when they close. Um, she told me it was bulletproof, all of the doors and the plexiglass and her little thing. So basically, you have to get buzzed into the first door, and then there's this like waiting room with another buzz-in door. And then the office gal, has a plexiglass. She says it's bulletproof. She's like, that's what they told me, and I hope that they're telling the truth because she's like, I sit right there. I'm like, yeah, let's hope.
I'm the first line of defense if this
Yeah.
thing goes down.
She's a sitting duck. So she's in there. So she has eyes on everybody that comes in. And beyond that, they have there are several men on the campus at all times that are carrying.
Oh, that's really nice.
And you don't know
Are
who they
these
are.
ex military
Well, I
police
don't know.
officers? Do you know their background at all?
No clue. No clue. They're just, see, it's at a church too. And so between the church and the school, which are kind of two separate buildings, um, there are always men on campus that carry and or have access to probably a safe with extra. So yeah, they do have, but same thing with the old school I had the boys in. They did the same thing. So they won't tell you who it is.
That's smart.
Mm-hmm. They won't tell it. They won't disclose like who, because they don't, you don't want them to be taken out first.
Do you think teachers should carry?
Um, I'm comfortable with that. If the teacher is trained and there'd have to be a vetting process for that. I have no problem with that. I don't know about carry. I think if it was like in a safe where maybe the
Fingerprint
teacher's, yeah,
access.
fingerprint safe for the teacher, maybe that I'd be cool with that. And like the kids maybe don't know. Like you wouldn't be able to tell them which teachers, you know what I mean? Just kind of like this program, like don't say who has that capability. But I would be totally cool with that. And I think in Georgia it is legal. And I don't know if some schools do it because I think the superintendent is in charge of those decisions, but it is legal in Georgia. I just don't know if anyone's actually practicing that.
I would assume the teacher would, want to be comfortable with it and have training in shooting a firearm and go through additional school training and protocol and procedures. I would be okay with it. At this point, whatever we need to do to keep our children safe and to come home to us at the end of the day.
Hmm.
One mother said that she got a text message from her daughter, and this one was what really got me. It said, "If I get killed today, just know that I love you." I was
Oh
like,
God. Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
as a mom receiving a message like, I mean, no mother should ever have to receive a message like that from their child. And
Yeah, and
we had these conversations a couple times last year because there were a couple ones, the small Christian school.
yeah.
there was quite a few school shootings last year, that this has just gotten to be a place where any year, any school shooting, no matter how big or small, is completely unacceptable. And this doesn't need to be a political talking point. This needs to be a bipartisan, let's come across the aisle, no matter
Mhm.
what your political ideology is, and let's save these babies.
Right,
And let's help these children that have severe mental illness, because they deserve to be saved too.
right, right.
And
I
let's get
think,
to the
yeah.
root cause of what is causing these children to think this way. What, and a lot of these, I hope that they talk to this young man and really dive deep and try to help him and try to understand, because a lot of these school shooters either end up killing themselves or being killed. So, there's not a lot of cases where you have an opportunity to dive deep with the child, and maybe
Hmm.
he can help make a difference so that these things don't happen again. Maybe I'm being naive and he doesn't even, want to help. I'm just trying to think of ways we can find solutions.
Oh yeah, I want them to look at his brain.
Yeah.
What are the brain waves showing us? I want them to like,
Because there is brainwave testing that can
yeah,
identify maybe
which
neurological
areas are
disorders.
more, yeah, like,
Am I saying that right?
or just the more information we can find out, the better. Is a part of his brain overreactive versus another part? None of this excuses it. None of this explains it all away. But the more information we can get, now some people I think are a little skittish to create a profile, and then if some other kid fits this profile, well, what are you going to do? Start having a minority report and, you know, guilty before they've even tried. That's not what I'm saying, but I do think it helps, like you say, it could take just generations to fix this problem, because I think it's taken us generations to get here. But to try to understand what the triggers are, what is the petri dish that of what's the calculation that goes into the pie that creates someone that wants to go and take lives,
Right.
so that we can try to circumvent it with policy, with services.
At such a young age.
I
So
know, it's
we
just
really
heartbreaking.
are the generation of the first school shooting. I mean, do you remember where you were when Columbine happened?
I don't remember where I was. Was it, what year was that?
I have 1999. I thought it was before that, but I just Googled it. April 20th, 1999.
So I would have been in middle school.
I think I was in eighth grade, seventh or eighth grade.
Yeah. I don't remember where I was. I remember it happening. But do you know, someone pointed this out to me. I thought that that was kind of the first school shooting, and I guess it probably was the first major school shooting, but we have had school shootings since like the 1700s. I actually looked it up. Most of them were kind of, less casualties. You didn't start to have these mass casualty random shootings until, well, those aren't necessarily random, but anyway, until the assault rifles became more prevalent. And those did become more household prevalent in the late 80s. So I don't know. This is where I get a little bit less 2AE, because less NRA, because as much as I don't believe it is the gun access, because I live in a county that is so heavily armed and we have a violent crime rate that matches your average British town that has zero guns or very, very minimal. Um, as far as these mass shootings, which is a totally different category that has to be like looked at on its own, the ability to take as many lives as possible in a short period of time. I mean, it can't be denied that the assault rifles seem to be able to do that. Now, I'm not a gun expert, and every time I've talked about this, there's plenty of arguments to be thrown back at me that, you could put a bump stock on a handgun and create the same amount. I don't know. So I don't really know. Maybe that's for the experts to figure out. But something changed because the way that these, we've always had psychopaths, we've always had
Right.
nihilistic people, we've always had mental health issues. Um, People have always killed other people since the dawn of time, but this mass casualty type shooting means something changed. And I don't know if it is the type of guns that are more readily available in the homes or if it's something else. I don't know.
I don't know.
Do you know the first school shooting? I actually looked it up. Um, some sort of
I was
rebellion.
thinking, I wonder how the and if the additives in the food that we feed to the kids, if there's any sort of correlation with that.
I don't know. I mean, I think about that too. Food toxicity, the metal toxicity, the pesticides, um, I don't know, the vaccines. I don't know. And then I think about the pharmaceuticals because all these killers seem to be on like some of them like crazy amounts of pharmaceuticals that they're being prescribed. And then I think, well, okay, are the kids just crazier so they need more drugs? Or are they crazier because of the drugs? I don't know which it is. Like, which came first, the chicken or the egg?
Yeah, it would be an interesting study.
Yeah. So just for the record, this is just kind of interesting. The first school shooting okay, it was Enoch Brown School Massacre in the colonial states, July 26, 1764.
Wow.
A small schoolhouse around Greencastle, Pennsylvania. Four Lenape, I'm not sure how you say it, Native Americans entered the schoolhouse and killed Christian schoolmaster Enoch Brown and 11 of his students. Oof, they clubbed and scalped the students and scalped Brown. One student, Archie McCullough, was scalped but survived. It was some sort of a rebellion. It was like I don't know all the details, but they did it to kind of get back at them. But anyway, just a side note, very macabre side note there, but that was our official first school killing.
And that was 1774,
1764.
1764. Well, I mean, times were very different back then. And the Christians were, doing things to the Indian population. So I think if you go down that whole rabbit hole, the Christians did not treat the Indians kindly at
Yeah.
all.
Well, there were a lot more that comes from from there. I was looking through the history actually because someone pointed out to me, "Oh no, there've always been school shootings." And I was like, "Really?" So I looked it up. There was a gap between 1900 and 1930 where really nothing happened. So those were 30 years of but those weren't good years. I mean, we had the Great
Well,
Depression, we had war. Like I'm not sure why nothing was happening.
there's enough violence going on. We don't need any school shootings during this time.
I know, right? It's kind of weird. That was a gap. Anyway, it's all sad. I mean, we don't mean to make light of all this. We joke sometimes to cope, but it's frustrating. I wish there was an easy answer. And we all want action. I think one of the things I wish that people would stop saying, which really shuts down the conversation and doesn't really bring us together in a bipartisan way, is when I hear people say, "Oh, you care more about your guns than the kids. You don't care about saving children. We
To
don't
me,
care about the kids."
that's just ignorant.
I hear it
And
all the
that's
time.
that's not wanting to have an educated conversation about fixing the problem because in their mind, they want to get rid of guns. So the argument could be, well, like you just want to get rid of guns and you don't really care about the kids. So I, I would love for us to be stop being so polarized in one direction or another because the way you get things done is by coming together, having healthy conversations and debate, and then compromising on a solution that is right for the greater good of all people, not one side or the other. And until we start getting to a place where we start having open dialogues again and not being afraid to have healthy debates about hard topics, we're never going to get anything done. And these things are going to continue to happen.
Well, I get that people are frustrated though with the right on some of this because the NRA lobby does have their claws in a lot of these politicians on the Republican side. There's just no doubt about it. And they are very powerful. And I mean, there are definitely critiques, serious critiques to be made. And I think that really doesn't help the conversation either, that they're not able, maybe they don't feel like they're able to have a serious conversation, which is really unfortunate. I mean, I'm
And
really
that's why I'm
happy.
saying both
Yeah.
sides of the aisle.
Yeah.
I'm not on one side or the aisle. I'm on the side of the people that literally want to get together and have conversations about what to do to fix these so
Mm-hmm.
that they stop happening. How many more children have
Um,
to lose their lives? How many more teachers that live a life of service to help children grow and to be what they're meant to be? How many more?
well, one thing I am hopeful, if Trump wins, RFK will be a part of the transition team. And RFK has been very vocal on his criticism of the NRA lobbying, the NRA themselves, and he's definitely more left on this on the issue of gun legislation. And I'm really I really want that conversation to happen. I want to have that I want that conversation to unfold. I want to see what kind of solutions they can come up with together
I'm going to
to
stop you right there.
mm,
Our
mm, mm.
time's almost up
Okay.
for recording purposes. That was a great place to stop. I'm going to send you a new link.
All right. Talk to you
Okay,
later.
stay tuned.